This is a demo and tutorial video for my new Avisynth filter called Warp, which is for distorting the geometry of a video. As you can see on the top left here, this is the standard Avisynth color bars video, which has been distorted by Warp. On the bottom left you can see the control points which have been specified on calling the filter to distort the video. So these points on the sides here have brought the sides in, and these points in the middle have given an extra twist to the center of the video, which can be more easily seen in this video in the top center, which has painted a grid on the video, and this on the top right shows an overlay of the original clip in the background here in green, and the distorted video, which can be seen in magenta. For a more practical example, I'm going to use a short scene from Star Wars. The larger video is Blu-ray footage, and the smaller video is from DVD footage of the original edition, which was released as a bonus feature some years ago. One complaint that some people had about the Blu-ray is the colours. As you can see here, these reds are very oversaturated, as are the blues here. There's something of a green tint to the walls. The skin tones also are quite dark. So one thing that Warp can help with is to align the two videos so that the colour information from the DVD could be combined with the luminance information from the Blu-ray. Just play that through. Okay, so we've got the project file here, we've got the Blu-ray source and the DVD source, which is obviously a much smaller video. And the first thing we'll do is use Warp's overlay mode on the Blu-ray video, the larger video, with an overlay of the DVD clip. If we load that, we can see that the first problem, obviously, is that the DVD clip is much smaller than the Blu-ray video. Now, you could just resize it using Spline 16 resize here, but as you can see, they don't really overlay properly at all. You could shift it to align them more properly. You can see here the droid in the center is fairly well aligned, but to the left and the right, especially the right, there's obviously a misalignment. You could try resizing it slightly differently, but it's still impossible to get a good match between the Blu-ray and the DVD footage. I'll just show you the interleaved version. You can see how the distortion manifests. So what's needed is something that can warp different parts of the video differently to align the two videos, which is where Warp comes in. Control points, as we saw in the demo video, can be specified as parameters to the filter call, but in this case it's a lot easier to specify them as a PTO file, which is a project file created by panorama software such as Hugin. So I'm going to open Hugin, and the first thing we'll need to do is give Hugin two images from the video so that we can match the geometries. I've already got here two frames which I've saved out. This is the first frame in the video from both the Blu-ray and the DVD, a much smaller image. So we'll drag these onto Hugin, and the first thing Hugin does is ask for field of view and focal length. You can just put anything in here because this isn't going to affect what we're going to do. By default, Warp expects the project file to specify the source control points first, so we need to put the DVD, which is the image we want to change the geometry of, as the first one in the list. It's just a drag and drop. Now, before we go any further, if I just save this script, just call it Warp, and I go back to my Avisynth file, and we just need to change this around a bit because it's the DVD video that we want to warp now. So it's the Blu-ray that we want to overlay on top of it. I did it the other way around because the sizes of the videos are different. And we just specify the name of the project file, warp.pto, on the filter call. We reload. And what Warp has been able to do is read the size of the two images, and it's because there are no control points specified, it's rescaled the DVD video to match the dimensions of the Blu-ray video. As you can see, this is the same as the image we saw before. We can see it's completely unregistered. So now if we go back to the Hugin project file, go to the control points tab, shows you both the same image on the left and right panes. So we'll just change the second image to the Blu-ray JPEG. which it's scaled down to fit, obviously. And what we need to do is specify some control points to tell Warp which parts of the image need to be moved to which positions. The easiest thing to start off with is points near the corners of the image, because they'll have the greatest effect. There's not a lot of detail in this top left corner, so we'll go for the corner of this box here, and the corresponding point on the Blu-ray image is just here. It just zooms in with the first click, and click here. See, that's pretty good alignment. By default, Hugin has an auto fine-tune box here, which tries to better match the two positions you've clicked on. I've turned that off because it doesn't work so well if the scales of the images are very different, but we'll go back to that later. We need another position on the top right, so I'll go for the corner of this box here. I just move the mouse down here, we'll get a zoomed in view. That seems like a pretty good alignment. There's a small mark on the wall here, which we'll use as another control point. Slightly to the right of that one, so just try and click in roughly the same position on the second the Blu-ray frame there. And on the left we'll go for this point here, just on the corner of this object, and the corresponding point on the Blu-ray, which looks pretty good. I can actually adjust the positioning, just adjusting it on the left here with the cursor keys if you need to, so I'll just move that a little bit. Okay, we'll now resave the file, go back to Virtual Dub, and now we can see it's much better alignment, but it's not perfect because, as you can see around 3PO's arms here, there's still a lot of green and magenta showing the misalignment on the wall here, on the front of R2 here, on these boxes here. What we could try instead is to use the quad filter, which is part of Warp, which can use 4 control points to do a quadrilateral transform, which is slightly different to the thin plate spline which Warp uses. In this case, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. You see the alignment changed a little bit in the middle here. It's got a bit worse on the top left here. So go back to Warp, just reload that. Now if we go back to our Hugin project file, what we need to do is try and correct the misalignments that we can see around the video. So the most obvious misalignment to me seems to be, for example, here on the left hand side of 3PO. So if we add another control point on this bright circle here, and on the corresponding circle in the Blu-ray video, it seems to be on the lower part of that circle, so I'll just click about there. That seems to be pretty good. If we save that, go back to Virtual Dub, reload and keep an eye on this area here. You can see now the alignment's suddenly much better here, but it hasn't affected the rest of the video. So now if we just keep going, just need to add as many control points as necessary until we get a good alignment. So there's another position here which is fairly badly aligned, so we'll just find some detail in here we can click on. Let's just try this point between those two figures. But that should be okay. So reload again, and that's created the geometry a bit better. This green section here seems to be some kind of artifact from the restoration process, so we can ignore that. Down here, bit of a problem there. Just click on that item there. So this, every time we click, it's bringing more and more of the picture into alignment. So now if we just keep specifying control points, so I can now see we're starting to get a pretty good alignment. There's a control point in this area here which hasn't really aligned itself properly. Obviously made a mistake with that one. So if you have a look on here, we can see the number is 9. We can find that control point in the list here, number 9. And yes, it looks like I've misplaced that one. So I can just move the arrow keys. I can move the control point in the DVD image down a bit. Save the project again, reload in Virtual Dub. That's got a much better alignment. Still a little bit left to do over on the right hand side here, so we'll just add a few more control points. And that's starting to look pretty good. Now, unfortunately, if we now play the video, we can see that the geometry doesn't stay matched throughout the rest of the video. obviously one of the videos is changing its geometry as it moves on and they fall out of alignment. So the obvious thing to do is to go to the last frame, number 63 here. I've already got some JPEGs already saved to this frame, 63 Blu-ray and 63 DVD. We'll start a new Hugin project with these images. So I'll just drag those onto the Photos tab. Again, specifying anything here, doesn't matter. Need to put the DVD image first because that's the one we're remapping. Go to the control points page and we'll just do the same again using the four corners first of all, picking some obvious targets. Just to check the alignment on that one. That's roughly right. Corner of this box. Slightly down from the top there. Go right into the corner here with the corner of this black object. Should be about there. And on the left, it's a little hard to see, but there's a mark on the wall you can see on the Blu-ray footage here. I'm just about making it out on the DVD footage, so we'll try and use that as our control point. Now I'll save this project as Warp 63 because it's for the 63rd frame in the file. Go back to our AVS script, change this to Warp 63. We can see the four corners are fairly well aligned, although obviously the distortion suddenly changes quite a lot around here. Obviously 3PO is very badly unaligned, so we just need to do the same thing, fill the project with control points until we've got a pretty good match. So go back to the Hugin project file and we'll just do that. I should just mention as well, there's another parameter you can add to Warp, which is called overlay threshold. Just give that a value of 64, which I know works quite well for these videos. That will highlight any differences in alignment to just give you a better look at them. So we'll use that while we finish off this project for the 63rd frame. So it's pretty good. We've got pretty good alignment all across the video. Fortunately, of course, now if we go back to the first frame, it no longer matches because we're using a project file based on a completely different frame of the video. What we can do is use a second filter, which is part of the same DLL, which is called Warp Series. What this takes as input are maps. Those are created by specifying a map parameter to warp, to the original call to warp. And we're going to give that a parameter here of 63 because that maps it to the 63rd frame. As you can see, we're using warp63.pto. And the result of that is this mess, which may not look like much, but it is a map of the distortions to the video for the different channels. So up here we've got the Y and V channels, and here is for the Luma channel, the Y channel. If we assign that to a variable, actually we'll call that B, because we're going to assign A to a map for the original frame, the frame 0. And if we return that, we can see that it's different to the map for frame 63. What we're going to do is pass these two maps to the filter Warp Series, which is going to call against the DVD video. Put them in there, A and B, first two parameters. We'll also enable the overlay again with the Blu-ray video and the overlay threshold of 64. Now if we reload, scale this back up to full size. This is our frame 0, pretty well aligned. Obviously there's a little bit more work to be done. And if we skip to frame 63, we can see that frame 63 is also aligned. What Warp Series has done is morph, essentially, or it's a bit simpler than that, from the frame 0 map to the frame 63 map across the video. So if we step back a few frames, it looks pretty good because there's not much difference. Step back through the video, still looking pretty good. Starts to get a bit misaligned here around frame 10, and then goes back into alignment once we get to frame 0. Let's play this through again. So obviously there's still some more work to do. We go back to the beginning of the video, first frame. Doesn't look too bad, probably needs a bit more work down here. So actually I'm just going to fix that by going back to our original project file. Earlier we didn't have overlay threshold on, so these differences here weren't too easy to spot. But hopefully it's only going to take a couple of control points to sort this out. There. That's already made this area a lot better. Actually looks like our control point that we set here earlier may not be as good as it looked before. That is number 6, so we'll just find that in the list. Just see if we can nudge it to the right a little. Even better. Some misalignment on the hand and the waist of this android here. So just find some obvious marker points like this shiny area here. It's not quite in the area we were looking at, but that shouldn't matter too much because it will pull the rest of the video into alignment. That's looking much better. One more I think on the hand. Just comparing it visually to the zoom we can see of the area we clicked here. Just see that we need to click about there. Not bad, it's started to make R2 a little more unaligned. We don't have any control points on R2 in fact, so it's obviously something we need to sort out. It's a little tricky when there's so much detail in an area like this, it's hard to see what you're clicking on. Of course, each time you place a new control point, it is going to distort other areas of the video nearby, which may then need further control points. Use the arrow keys a little on that one. That's pretty good. You're not going to see much of this distortion once we remove the overlay threshold anyway. So we've got the PTO file for the frame 0, blending through to the PTO file for frame 63. We step through, we can see there's still some misalignment in the middle of the video. It's maximal around about frame 10. Now I already knew this from previously going through this video file, so in the frames folder I already have the frames 10 Blu-ray and 10 DVD. So what we're going to do is start a new Hugin project. Just press Ctrl N, go to the Photos tab, drag in our 2 frames. Again, specify anything here just to get past this dialog box. Put DVD at the top because that's the image we're correcting the geometry of to match the Blu-ray image. And on the control point screen, I'm going to fast forward through this section. We'll do the same again, starting in the 4 corners. We'll just add control points until we get a good alignment on frame 10. Okay, so we've got our 4 corner control points. We're just saving the project as warp 10. And we'll add it as another map. Let's change this to, change the variable name, say A, B and C. So it's warp10.pto, and again we specify the map parameter to map it specifically to frame 10. Just add frame C there as well. Go back to virtual dub. And we can see it's not aligned it very well at all. The 4 corners that we specified are fairly well aligned. This one in the top right needs some work. This one at the bottom left obviously needs some work as well. So we can just adjust those with the arrow keys, hopefully, until they look like they make more sense. That seems to be about there. And then on the top left. Let's move over to the right. And one on the bottom left still wrong. I'm actually going to delete that control point. There's not enough detail there really to see where we're clicking. So I'll use this area here instead because it's a little bit better defined. About there. Yeah, that's better. Now we'll just add more control points. And now that looks pretty good. If we step back to frame 0, you see the alignment stays pretty good until frame 0. Should be very good on frame 10 because we have a specific file for that frame. And then all the way up to frame 63. So it's pretty well aligned. You could add more files for different frames if you'd like to. On previous runs I've added a map for frame 19. You can see there's quite a lot of misalignment in the middle here. Also frame 35. Although it looks good here, once you add the one for frame 19, you might find that then frame 35 becomes misaligned and it needs another control file, map file. So now we have our two videos pretty well aligned. We can do what we were aiming to do in the first place, which was to merge the colour information from the DVD video with the luminance information from the Blu-ray video. So we just call that last because it's the return result of the warp series. Which doesn't work because we still need to disable the overlay, otherwise it returns an RGB clip. So now we have the Blu-ray footage, the chrominance, the Y channel from the Blu-ray, and the colour from the DVD footage, which looks pretty good. Now, as you will have seen when we had the overlay enabled, the DVD footage doesn't quite fit over the Blu-ray footage, so we have these sections down here where there's no colour information. Just undo what we just did, put the overlay back on. So we've got this green section where we've got Blu-ray footage but no matching DVD footage. You could just take the result, crop it and scale it back up, but the other thing you can do is to remap the Blu-ray footage to match the DVD footage. This gets rather complicated doing it this way because obviously the DVD footage is a lot smaller than the Blu-ray footage, so the first thing we'll do is we'll scale up the DVD footage to match the same frame size. Secondly, we'll add a new parameter to swap, to the call to warp that makes the maps, a parameter called swap, which inverts the remapping. Just for clarity, we're going to change that to Blu-ray, although it doesn't actually matter in this case, because we're only creating a map, it's not actually touching any of the pixels. And this time it's Blu-ray that we're remapping, and it's DVD that we want to overlay on top of it for comparison. So we save that. Now if we refresh, we have a problem. Warp, when it creates the maps, looks at the contents of the PTO files. Just open these in Programmer's Notepad. And it identifies the dimensions of the images which are stored in there and uses those to rescale its output. In this case, because we've specified swap, the project files have the DVD file first and then the Blu-ray file, and previously it was resizing to match the Blu-ray file. Now because we've specified swap, it's swapping them to be the other way around, so it's rescaling everything to 720 by 326. I'm just going to change this in the project files here. This may cause a problem if we ever open them in Hugin again, but that shouldn't be necessary. Now hopefully, if we refresh, let's just take off the overlay threshold because it's just making things a bit messy at the moment. So we now have the right output size, but we have the DVD footage filling the frame and we have the Blu-ray footage scaled down into the left-hand corner. That's because all the control points are specified in terms of the original Blu-ray footage, which is much smaller. Now, rather than have to go back and recreate all these project files again, we can actually use some extra parameters called to warp, which can rescale the control points before the warping is done. Now in this case, it's the control points of the second image, because remember we've swapped them over, that we need to remap. We use scale x2, which is the x coordinates for the second image, and we need to scale them up to match the new size of the video, which is 1920, divided by the original size of the video, which was 720. We have to specify 0.0 to make sure that Avisynth treats it as a floating point number. Hopefully, if we refresh, it's now stretched everything out. So we need one more parameter, and that's scale y2, and we need to put in the target size and the source size, which I think is 326 pixels. Now if we refresh, We get an almost perfect overlay. There's still a bit of footage missing at the top corner here. That actually may be down to a bad control point. As you can see, there's a slight problem there. Now, I don't know what's going to happen if I open up the original file. Let's just try and alter that control point using the arrow keys. Save, refresh. Now we've got a dimensions mismatch here. That's because Hugin has automatically overwritten the changes we made. Saying yes to lose changes. It's automatically changed these image coordinates back. So we'll just change that to 816.1920. Refresh, and now that seems fine. Still a little bit missing. We're not going to worry too much about that. Play the whole thing through. The alignment seems pretty good, and it's filling the frame on all the frames. So now I'll try to merge the chroma. This time the luminance channel is the video we've just remapped, so that's last, and DVD, which we've already scaled up here to match the dimensions. Again, I forgot to disable the overlay on DVD. Whenever you use the overlay, it automatically outputs an RGB24 clip. So that's changed the colour space, which makes the videos incompatible for merge chroma. So just take that back out. And now we have Blu-ray footage with DVD colour filling the entire frame. Now that was all rather complicated because I had to go in and edit the PTO files. There is another way around you can do it. Rather than making Hugin projects based on the original size DVD frames, you can scale them up first, as we do here, scaling up to match the dimensions. Make a Hugin project using those scaled up version, and then you can remap your videos that way. Again, you can use the scale X and scale Y parameters to make any changes to the control point coordinates. That can save you from having to resize the video twice. You'd be calling spline 16 resize here to resize the video, and then you'd be remapping the video again, which is a sort of a generational loss. Hopefully that has explained roughly how to use warp and warp series to you. I apologise, I'm not very good at explaining things or writing documentation, which is why I've done this video in the first place. But if you have any questions, I'll put a link to the Doom 9 forum discussion in the bottom of the video, and also a link to download Hugin, and Virtual Dub 2, and Avisynth, and of course my filter Warp.